First of all, if you're watching this video and you have no idea what I'm talking about, it may be a good idea to watch the previous episodes first. You'll find them in the description. And if you have no idea who I am, let me introduce myself. I'm Hans Beesmer and I'm doing Ford. That's why it's called Back and Forth. First, we briefly mentioned the macro player in the previous episode. In essence, it's a very simple routine. First, we determine if it's a macro. If it is, we access the first token. If it's a preprocessor command, we execute it. If it isn't, we recurse. And finally, we loop back. If it's not a macro, we print the token as is. Job done. That's it. Now, this is the real code. And we try to execute the macro fconstant, which you will find at the bottom. Since fconstant is a macro, we get the first token and enter the loop. There we find fvariable. Since it's not a preprocessor command, we recurse. And we find ourselves asking the question, is it a macro once more? Since it is, we get the first token, which is fetch1 fetch. Since it's a preprocessor command, we execute it and get the next token, which is float. Now, that isn't a preprocessor command, so we recurse once more. And yes, we ask ourselves, is it a macro? No, it isn't, so we print the word and fall back to the previous invocation, which is still fvariable. And we get ourselves array, which is neither a preprocessor command nor a macro, so it is printed. Finally, we encounter #1#, which is a preprocessor command and hence executed. And then we're done with fvariable and fall back to the execution of fconstant. The token latest isn't a preprocessor command, and it isn't a macro either, so it is printed. The same goes for all other words in the fconstant macro, like fstore, so these are all printed as well. Now, I'm always out for new libraries, so there was a time I experimented with string stacks. My first attempt was a pretty fancy one. It allowed for several different string stacks, and whatever the user did with it, it was all pretty transparent. The second one allowed for several string stacks as well, but it required a bit more thought from the user. I finally settled for a simpler one, which allowed for only one single string stack, and hence was pretty lightweight. So that's the one I ended up plugging into the preprocessor. I didn't remove the registers though. First of all, why break existing code? And second, they turned out to be pretty handy. And there we've got the string stack. Now let's add some strings to it. Note that the top of the string stack is at the bottom of the image. Let's try drop. Can we do that? Yes, we can. Let's try a dub. No problem at all. Let's do over. Works fine as well. Let's do swap. And here we get into problems. Why? Because when we move the dogs down, we overwrite cat, which means whatever is moved in the position of dogs, it's certainly not cat. Because cat isn't there anymore. It has been corrupted by dogs. So let's scrap that one. Let's try it again, but this time we're going to use another method. First we move the strings to a register. And then we put them back on the string stack. That works perfectly fine. We don't even need to build that one in, we can express it in a macro. The preprocessor command from number from puts the top of the string stack in the named register. The preprocessor command to number to puts the contents in the named register on the stack. Job done. But there are lots of other things you can do with a string stack. Let's put the strings 23 and 57 on the string stack. Note, these are strings, not numbers. And now let's add the preprocessor command plus that takes two strings from the stack, converts them to numbers, adds them, and finally converts the sum to a string and puts that string back on the string stack. But in order to avoid all confusion, let's name this command add. And since we're at it, let's add another one that multiplies two numbers, and let's call it add_mo. Okay, forget it. Let's add a whole new bunch of preprocessor commands. You understand what this means? No? It means we can do calculations, yeah! Of course, the number of registers is limited, so it's better to free them up as much as we can by replacing them with their stack equivalents, because we have a stack now. Why risk clobbering your registers? It's one more bug we can avoid, isn't it? Well, if you're thinking this is the third installment, he's probably out of steam now, I hate to disappoint you, but no, we're not. Next time we're treading into full-fledged M4 territory and beyond. So, I'm Hans Beesmer and this was yet another episode of Back and Forth. See you next time for the last installment on the fourth preprocessor. Or maybe not, I don't know. I still got so much ground to cover.